Okay, guys, so we're going to look at the second question or the second part of your composing paper, which is the harmony question. And we're looking specifically here at question 5. So everything in this tutorial here refers to question 5, which is the question we worked through in class. We haven't looked at the other options available to you here. Okay. So first of all, and very importantly, what are you being asked to do in question 5? And again, this ties into what we spoke about in the melody writing question. There is some subjectivity about how this is marked and what you're asked to do, and opinion comes into it, but there are some things you're specifically told to do. Insert suitable bass notes and chord indications in the style of the given opening. Do not use the same chord in the same position in adjacent boxes. What that means, so for example, you could use chord 1 and 1B, the first version of chord 1, in an adjacent box, but not 1 and 1 again, or 5 and 5 again. You would have to do a different inversion, or add in the 7th, make it a dominant 7th, and so on if you're using chord 5. So again, that's black and white. There's no opinion there. If you use the same chord twice in a row, you'll be wrong. You'll be marked wrong. You may use chord symbols or Roman numerals, but not both. I'm using chord symbols here, obviously, and in class you would have seen me do that as well, but you're perfectly free to use Roman numerals if you're more comfortable doing that. Okay, so let's a quick look at how it's marked. And again, this is freely available. This is the 2019 marking scheme. The first point here is 1 mark for each chord that is part of a good progression in all chord boxes. So get the chords right, and there's 22 marks. This is marked out of 60 in total. Then second, the quality of musical progressions. And this is where you get 14 marks in total for this, and it's broken down into 5 different bands. Excellent chord progressions, very good chord progressions, fair chord progressions, and poor chord progressions. I'll let you look in that a little bit more yourself, and we will be dealing with chord progressions in a moment. And then the remaining 24 marks are for your bass line. And again, where the advantage of the marking here over your melody writing, if you look at it here, half a mark per correct bass note under each correct chord symbol. And again, that's black and white. That's either right or wrong. It's not the examiner's opinion here. So once you've picked a correct chord symbol, that is important, the bass line underneath that has to match that. So for example, again, let's say in the chord of C, and you've got the chord of C in the melody, the bass note has to be C. Anything else, and it's wrong. Simple as that. The quality of bass line, again, you have different bands available to us here, similar to the chord progression. And then this is further very helpful advice from the SEC, and this is included in their marking schemes. And do have a read of this. Some general points about chord progressions. Particularly here, 5-7 to 5, not accepted. 5 to 5-7, good. 5B or 5-7B must always be followed by 1 unless coming down a step in the bass, and so on. I'm not going to deal with this here in the moment, but in this tutorial, but do please take a moment to use this when you're revising and when you're approaching the question later on in this tutorial. Again, some of the notes I'm showing you here are from the Higgins and Higgins notes books. These are the same books as you do your melody writing exercise, your harmony exercise, and so on. It's not all necessarily my work here. This is a very, very good guideline as to how what chords create good, strong chord progressions. It's excellent, and again, there's no need for me to just recite this here, but use this as a guide. It's very helpful. Print this out, learn it. Again, as with melody writing, you can't just do one of these exercises here and there in the run up to your exam and expect to do very well at this. You have to be doing it all the time. You have to be regularly practicing your harmony exercises. Cadences. So again, at the end of every phrase, the last 2 chords form what we call a cadence. And again, you know this. There are different cadences available to us. 4 cadences are 5-1 or 5-7-1. That makes a perfect cadence. A plagal cadence, 4-1. An interrupted cadence, 5-6 or 5-7-6. An imperfect cadence, 1-5, 2-5, or 4-5. 5-7 is not used in imperfect cadence as the 7th must resolve. Then the second part of this exercise or this question is adding the bass line. And again, there's marks going for quality of bass line as well. So as we discussed earlier, some of this is black and white. Your chords are either correct or incorrect, or your bass note has to match the chord above it. And if it doesn't, you won't get marks. If it does, You will get the marks. But again, some of it, the quality of the bass line, there's a little bit of subjectivity comes into this as well. Not much, you can follow very clear guidelines for creating nice bass lines. So first point here, the bass note below the chord box must reflect the chosen chord. So for example, D minor over F means that the note F must be in the bass note under the box. And anything, so the chord of G, the bass note must be G. The chord of A, the chord of A, the bass note must be A. But again, watch out for your inversions, your polychords, whatever you want to call them. The note to the right of the slash is the note that must be in the bass. So for example, C over E must be E in the bass, and so on. Passing notes make your bass line more interesting, but these must be musical. Check that there are no unresolved clashes. Don't double the third. Now, I know some of you have difficulty understanding what I mean by this. So for example, in the key of C, if E is in the melody, don't use the chord C over E as the chord. So if you have, as the chord box, if you have the chord of C over E, don't use E in the bass. You'll have the major third of the chord, the third up from the note C, in both the melody and in the bass line, and it's not good. Likewise, avoid consecutive fifths and octaves. We've gone into this in detail in class. And again, I'm happy to discuss that more with you if you want when you submit your work. Then working through the question. Now, a lot of this work is taken from this Higgins and Higgins notebook. It's not necessarily my own work here. So first of all, complete the chord bank. You'll be asked to do that. It's not part of the marks, but do it. It's not part of the marking scheme, but you must do this. Don't forget to write in flat or sharp signs. Very importantly, do not omit the suffix M for minor chords. Very important. Now, it's a wrong chord. If you mean to write A minor and you don't write the M and just write A, it's a different chord. Use lowercase for minor chords if using Roman numerals. Add the seventh note of the chord of 5 to form the dominant seventh. Sing the melody if you can. Make an attempt to sing the melody. This is important. Like with the melody writing, you should be singing your melodies and certainly making an attempt. It gives you a more real sense of what you're trying to do as opposed to just applying a formula to the question. And write the word cadence over the final two chords of each phrase. So you're going to apply one of your 4 cadential options to the last 2 chords of each phrase. Write the available chords over each box. Now do remember, you might have more than one option available to you for each chord box. If that happens, and it will happen, there will certainly be chords or boxes where you have several chords available to you. Look around you, look and see what chords are either side of that chord box and see how we can develop a good chord progression. And we discussed this in the marking scheme earlier on. It's strong chord progressions we're looking for here, not individual chords as we go along. Notes that leap usually have to be harmonized. It's important. Passing notes are not chord tones, so you don't have to make every single note. If you're looking for, so the notes underneath each chord box, between each chord box, have to apply. So for example, if you have one chord box, all the notes from that box until you reach the next box are part of the chord that you're harmonizing there. You don't, however, in the case of passing notes, so for example, let's say you had three notes under one box, C, D, and E. The D there is a passing note. C and E are the chord tones, so you could use the chord of C major, for example. As we just mentioned, there may be several options available for each chord. Look at the chords either side of each box to determine the strongest progression as opposed to individual chord. Look for progressions that will work well. For example, 1 6 2 5 or 1 4 5 6. And again, it keeps coming back to this thing. Don't think of each chord box in isolation. You're trying to write strong chord progressions here. Write the bass line, making sure the bass line under each box reflects the chord you have chosen. Avoid awkward leaps in the bass lines, sevenths or augmented fourths, and use inversions if you need to make the best bass line smoother. Otherwise, do stick to root chords. Finally, don't double the major third of a first inversion chord. So again, keeping to the key of C. If you're going from the chord of C to the chord of C over E, or in Roman numerals, it's 1 to 1B. Make sure in the second chord there, 1B or C over E, that you don't have an E in the melody. You're doubling the third. Okay, so just have a look. I've posted this question here for you now, and it's going to be on Google Classroom. This is the 2017 question 5 from the harmony paper, and this is the actual question here on the last page of this YouTube tutorial. So guys, work your way through this, submit it to me on Google Classroom. I will mark it and return it to you, and go through any tweaks you need to make to this, and please feel free to contact me. Hope you're all keeping safe and well, and yeah, best of luck. Keep in touch.